Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good Saturday and enjoying a bit of a weather. I hope everyone has understood how the program logistics work, and we will get started in a minute. But let me ask a question to you all about: have you posted about your week one badge on on your LinkedIn profile or social profile? If you have done it, let me know in the chat. If you have not, it is a good time to put your badges to the shining LinkedIn brand, and then maybe you can add it to your CV, add it to your profile, add it to your websites also. So that's why we create badge so that you can showcase your skills to the people, and that's why this is a good way to be known into community that you are learning something new. And we have full house today, so I'll quickly add people who are helping us today with chat and other stuff, and we'll quickly move forward with that. So we have Prasad here in his
Hello
brand new
everyone.
cap, and then we have Krishna with a nice background. Parna is having a lot of books to read, I guess, and Jeff is wearing a really nice T-shirt. I'm a little envious of him. And we have Anmol also, who is joining us today. Nice T-shirt, Anmol. Thanks, everyone. So we will have lots of discussion to going on, and we will continue moving forward. Like, what about you all? Like, have you posted about have you completed the quiz? Anyone of you? Anyone? At least Parna did because she had to test every
I
quiz.
had to test
Exactly,
everything.
exactly.
So I
So
knew
yeah.
the answers.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do post about Bessa channel, and all of us you probably have seen that we post on LinkedIn. So get connected, send us friend request, and we would be happy to get connected there. We have Instagram page also. I'm not pretty much on Instagram, but if any of you are, please follow Instagram page also. That would be really nice. And let's get started. And I'll keep on adding people as the team continue work with the work. I'll quickly brief you that what we are going to discuss today. So we will be talking about technical topics, which is building agentic AI architecture with serverless. That would be around 50 minutes of discussion. That would be led by me and Krishna, and then we have behavioral track. That why facilitation is a superpower. That would be for 30 minutes. Jeff and Nisha would be running it, and then workshop walkthrough would be done by Parna and Anmol. Sorry, Anmol, I didn't add your name there, but Anmol and Parna would be running the workshop walkthrough for us. So let's quickly get started, and we'll answer as many questions as we can. So let me keep Krishna here. Krishna is going to help to be acting as a customer today. So let's get started with that. But before that, let me explain about the logistics little bit. So we have a pre-launch session video on YouTube. So if anyone of you are new, you do not know where to go, what to do, like I'm seeing some question that how to get your badges and all, we have answered everything into this pre-launch video. So please make sure that you have watched it, and that would give you a good understanding on how these badges would work and what kind of things you can do in your BESA session. So that's there. And we already talked about the team. So you have met the team members. Let's now start our discussion with building agentic AI architecture with AWS Serverless. So we'll focus on that in a role play format. I would be acting as an AWS expert, known I like said AWS expert. I'm not that much expert, but we have Krishna who would be asking question, and I'll try my best to answer questions. And in the conversation, you would also learn about how we interact with customers. You will interact how to present technical information, and you would also be learning a lot of technical information as we go forward. All right. So welcome, Krishna. Happy to have you here, and let me know how I can help you with understanding about agentic AI with serverless.
Thank you, Ashish. Excited to be here. And you are an expert from my eyes because I have so many questions. And thank you for taking the time to answer these. I'm excited today because we're excited to be building with AI agents. So our team is getting started.
Mhm.
And the problem we're having is our workloads are very spiky. So some days you will see thousands of requests, but then other days it's not so much. It's almost, close to nothing. And we
Yeah.
definitely don't want to overpay for idle infrastructure. So I love that we're discussing agentic AI architectures with AWS serverless. So first thing I want to understand, how does serverless fit into the agentic AI picture?
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, so I would say serverless is a natural fit for the type of workload you talked about, Krishna. Like sometimes you have high utilization, sometimes you have very less requests coming in, so it fits well. But I want to like set stage for everyone so that we start with the basics of what serverless is, and then we will keep on moving forward with how agentic AI can be a really good fit for serverless architecture. Would it make sense?
Yes, that sounds great because I was also going to ask you, can we start from the very beginning? When you say serverless, let's
Yeah.
start with that.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
and that is a tip for everyone who is listening, that don't assume that customer knows everything what you know. So it's better to ask question and then say, if they say that yes, they know serverless, fine. Otherwise, it's always better to brush up some fundamental concepts and then move forward. That's where you build a grounding, and that way you earn trust of customers also. So keep that in mind for your actual discussions too. So let's talk about serverless. And I prefer always explaining things to analogies, and it's a very easy analogy everyone should be able to relate to. Let's talk about how we can talk about serverless. So probably if you own a car, you would be taking care of buying the car, then you would be taking care of maintenance, insurance is there. I'm not sure how much insurance you have to pay on in other countries, but in UK cost is really really high. And if you have a young driver, the cost of insurance is very very high. So
Yes.
you need to make sure that your car is available, and you need to ensure that you are able to maintain all the legal documentation and all. That is how owning a car is. Same like traditional servers. So you have to maintain them, you have to keep them updated, you have to keep them patched, you have to keep them available whenever you need to. But maybe you do not use car every single day. Like for me, I travel a lot. So for me, using a car is a very rare kind of occurrence. Mostly I work from home or I travel. So that's why I don't feel to have a car. But I still need to travel, right? So what I can do in those kind of cases, I can take a taxi. There are multiple apps available. I can go ahead and book a cab. I specify source and destination. You just request it when you need it. And it could be in the 11th hour, or it could be early morning or late night flight you are coming from. You can always get this particular information. So this cab, and you pay only for the journey. You do not pay anything for anything related to maintenance or upkeep or licensing or certification. So you leave the operation to the provider. They take care of who should be coming to pick you up, and then that's how it works. So this is a very simple example of how owning a car versus renting a taxi is what thinks of serverless. And it's not like just one example. I could go on and talk about it with more examples if you want to. Krishna, I lost your voice, or is it me only?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was
I
me.
know. It's fine.
Thank you. Yeah, so I love this example, really, Ashish. It's so plain and simple for me to connect to. But let me phrase then the next question that comes to my mind. So, yes, great, I take a taxi when I need it, but how does this then help with my cost problem when I'm still using the service? So, how does that
Mhm.
cut my cost down compared to traditional servers?
So yeah, cost is made down because you are not paying for the infrastructure upkeep. Let me give you an example of that. So let's say you own a gym. So if you own a gym, you have to take care of its running properly, and you have to have the machines and maintenance and people to keep it running. But if I am a user, I go to gym rarely, but what I do, I do not take a monthly subscription for gym because my travel plan always keeps on changing. So what I do instead, I know that next week I'm going to be in London, so I take only a weekly subscription of that particular gym. I go pay for 1 week, go there, exercise it, and come back. And that's how I keep my cost low. So I'm only using it when I'm needing those particular services. Same example can relate to your postal services, right? So you do not need to have a full blown postal system for yourself if you have to send a letter. You leverage, like here we use Royal Mail. In India, it is Indian Postal Services. In US, it is USPS. So these have created a network, and I only pay for one letter to go from point A to point B. And similarly, let's say I go for a car wash, I do not need to worry about where the water would come, where it would be disposed, how many men would be there. I just go pay for it, and then I'm done with it. So there is a fraction of cost which I'm paying rather than upkeeping the infrastructure. I don't wash my car every single day. If I had to, maybe I'll think about owning a car washing business. But right now, it's good to have like once in a while kind of a stuff. I can go pay for it and then move forward from there. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. So you're basically saying we're saving money because we're not taking one ownership, and
Exactly.
two, we're only paying when we use the service. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, and the similar concept applies into environment of serverless also. Now, I want to clarify one thing here about serverless, that serverless does not mean no server. That's what people think sometimes, that there is no servers at all. No, that's not correct. So serverless does not mean no servers, but I would put a simple definition that servers are abstracted away from the application developer, right? Take the example of Uber again. So I ride in a taxi. I don't care when this car was bought, how much insurance is there, how much is the fuel, all these things, when the maintenance was done. I'm expecting when Uber is allowing some driver to come to the the pool, they would have done all the verification of security, safety, cars health and maintenance. They would take care of all these things, and I just use their services. So services are there, so servers are still there, but they've been abstracted away. I don't have to worry about all those things which are happening behind the scene, right?
Okay, fantastic. So, serverless does not mean no servers. They are
Mhm.
still there, but you are not responsible for maintenance. You use
Exactly.
it, and then when you're done with it, it's no longer your responsibility at all.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
perfect.
true. So, like in a traditional way, you provision things, you configure them, you maintain them for a long period, then you scale them when the need comes, and you pay while you're using it for all the time this is your paid for. But in serverless, we say, hey, don't worry about all the stuff. What you should be doing, you should be requesting the resources when you need it. You just dispose of when you are done. You execute your workload. You can scale automatically, whether it's a one request or 10,000 requests or 1 million requests, and you only will be charged for what exactly you use. That's how it should be working. So that's what the serverless idea is.
Okay, so I want to connect this with my AI workloads for our team.
Mhm.
And AI workloads, we said they're often very unpredictable, they're spiky or bursty, and they're intermittent. So, if we apply this concept to our AI workloads, how are we gaining advantages, and what are we gaining in terms of advantages?
Yeah. So yeah, if your application is bursty or it requires intermittent workloads, then serverless is a good fit on that. So business case, if I say that why it should be a good fit for serverless AI, because in traditional architecture you over provision resources, considering that what would be my peak workload. Here you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about scaling it because AWS behind the scene would take care of all these things. So what we do that we have a lot of advantages which are coming, which are very relevant to AI workload which we have. Let me explain some of them as we move forward. So first thing, serverless would scale automatically. As I said, you send one request or 10 requests or 100 requests, it would have capacity to handle that much requests behind the scene. Then it will execute on demand when you actually need that capacity. Somebody comes to your application, they require some intelligence for that, they triggered some workload. That's why they would be able to have execution done on that. Then you could have reduced operational overhead because you are not maintaining it. I don't maintain a car when I'm riding a Uber. I
Yeah.
don't take care of its yearly maintenance or insurance. They take care of all these things. So that's what we have. And another benefit is we pay only for your resources. So that's exactly what is happening in the serverless system, which relates to AI. In AI also, as we see, my application can require a lot of scaling. I may have to execute on demand when somebody is requesting a request response from my application. Same thing, we have reduced overhead here and we pay only for resources. So that's why I feel that serverless is a natural fit for running your AI applications.
Yes, I
Does it
think
make sense?
yes, and this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. But our team is new and figuring out our way with AWS services. So, can you help me by maybe telling me or mapping what you're saying about serverless AI? What services should we look into? What services are available that will help us build
Mhm.
exactly what you're offering here?
Makes sense. Yeah, that's a good thing. So I compiled a list for you, Krishna. So it's not a full list, but it is a very commonly used services which can be really helpful into serverless AI. So Lambda is one, which is our Swiss Army knife where you can execute code in the event-driven architecture you want to run. Then SageMaker is there. Then we have Bedrock, which is helping you to run foundational model rather than worrying about maintaining the model. We take care of that thing. Then Agent Core is there, which helps you in providing all these things like required runtime, memory, identity, tools, calling, all of that. And then when the serverless applications are working, they would generate events. So we can use Event Bridge for that. And for putting them into a coordination pattern, step functions are there. And if may have to run your application near to your end user or maybe in a factory floor, you don't need to run to cloud. You could leverage things like IoT Greengrass for that. And we can also execute these serverless functions on edge locations of AWS. So these are some list of services, and I'll explain more about them and how actually they are being utilized into your environment. We will discuss on those things also. But this is a partial list, and I have created like what it offers, and I have put one more column here that says why it is ideal for agentic AI because you could leverage those specific aspects of the services which can benefit your AI applications.
Yes, and this is great. This is a great starting point, I think, for our team. I want to go ahead and talk more about understanding, like, what is there a theme, like a core principles of how this serverless AI would actually work?
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like these are services, but services are only good if you know that where to use it and how to use it. So in
Oh,
what specific scenarios they would be helpful, or what should be the principle you should apply to use these services. Let me talk a little bit on that. So I'll talk about few principles here so that you understand that how easy it is to leverage AWS services in the given context associated with that. So let's talk about core principle for serverless AI on AWS. So serverless AI is not just one thing, but it is what we are doing here. Serverless gives you intelligence, sorry, infrastructure on demand. Now, if we can provide you intelligence on demand also, like Bedrock services, you should be able to have that method of putting everything together. So you get infrastructure also when you need it, and you need intelligence also when you need it. And that's how you are able to leverage your serverless application. So let's get started on that. So when you're building an application, I'm talking purely from a general perspective here that when you are building an AI application, we would say that basic five fundamentals which you should be answering to. Let's see what these five fundamental questions are. First question which should come to your mind is that what would start the system? So you have built the system, right? When it should get activated? Would it be automatically activating? Would it be activating on a specific time? Or would it be activating based on some other thing happening within your bigger system? So we need to do that type of thing. So first thing you need to think about that what would be starting the system. Second logical question you would have that, okay, I started the system. Now, who would coordinate the work? Because you may need to talk to memory, you may need to talk to tools, you may need to log the information, you may need to store some data. So you need a coordinator who would manage when these particular services are running with each other. So we would need a coordinator for that. So we would have to think about those specific things. Then you need to also think about where your intelligence would be coming from. Intelligence is what I'm talking about, the large language model or any specific model which you have created on your own, where it would run. Would it be running into cloud? Would it be running on premises? That's what where you would be executing the intelligence question. Then comes what would be your trusted context, because a model may be good, but it may not be able to help me with my specific question. So let's say I have to take help of a medical report. So I have to present my medical report to model and say, hey, then analyze it and give me some information. Then only it can work, because otherwise it has been trained on general data which is not having any specific information about myself. So that's why we would be needing AI trusted context. And then where this inference would happen, I'll explain inference in a minute, but idea is we want to ensure that we could execute this workload of AI as near to user as possible. That's how we should be able to adhere to these five principles for any serverless AI application we are building, right?
okay. So these are the fundamentals or like the basic questions you should ask yourself when you're
Mhm.
building the architecture. Now,
Exactly.
it sounds very coordinated. It sounds good, but let me start from the very first question that comes to my mind. And you said in serverless, if we're not continuously running my AI agent,
Mhm.
then how does it know when something happens? You said question or point one here, you said what starts the system. So how
Exactly.
does my AI agent, which is not running all the time, which is great,
Yep.
it's saving me money, but how does
Mhm.
it know that, hey, I have to wake up, I have to now do something?
So simple example would be like, let's say in your house you may have a fire alarm, right? It is there. It's not activated right now, but when that event happens, when it detects smoke or when it detects temperature rising, it may get activated. Right, in your engine also in car, like when it goes about a threshold of a heat, it may start giving you heat engine information. So it's exactly the same. When a specific event happens, that could trigger your system. Now, event can be very specific or it could be very generic. Specific in the sense somebody clicks a specific button in your application. That is the event which happened, and that can go ahead and say, okay, now it is a time where we have to invoke this particular serverless application, which will be resulting into whatever AI workload I have, and that is what we refer as an event. So event could be coming from your system, it could be human generated, it could be system generated, or it could be a schedule. Like I want to take a backup of my application at 5 p.m. I could put an event to start at 5 p.m. and take care of all the backups for me. So that's what will be the starting point, either human generated or a system generated, or we could have a scheduled event which can happen. Does it make sense?
Yes, we define what that event will be, and it can be in different formats. Like you just said, one thing that in my house, my air conditioner just triggered. So we set the threshold. So
Exactly.
then the AC gets triggered, right? So same thing here, and we set that condition for which the event will trigger, and then the agent is kicked into action.
Yeah, so it should be a starting point like, okay, this is where we have to invoke the agent. That's what we sometimes use as a technical word, that we are invoking an agent for doing specific thing. So that's what an event would be, right?
Okay.
And once this starts, it would need a coordination because agent may need to talk to a storage, agent may need to activate a workflow, or may need to activate some monitoring system. And that's why we would be needing a workflow. And that is what we refer as orchestration. So we are orchestrating, like when in your, if you go to a orchestra watching, there would be a conductor who is saying, okay, this time the trumpet would sound, this time piano would play, this time the drum would play. So that is the same thing that he or she is orchestrating who
Mhm.
would be playing at a particular time. Same thing here. When my application is starting, it may need to coordinate when storage would be called in, when there would be logs happening, when there would be monitoring required. So there would be orchestration required too. That is what every serverless AI application would be.
Okay, so you're telling me that once the agent is awake, the orchestration is where what happens next is decided. So, what if some of my steps or some of the things that your agent has to do are purely based on rules, but
Mhm.
some need some way of AI thinking? Can I mix
Exactly.
them both? Is that allowed?
Yeah. So when I say orchestration, it is like a logical flow, but it can be a predefined workflow, or it could be a dynamic workflow which agent figured out that particular time. Like maybe we have been given, or like we all been trained that if there is a fire alarm, we have to rush out, right? So we
Right.
follow a path. Now,
Yeah.
if in that path, if there is a obstruction, it doesn't mean that I don't have to go out. I still have to go out because there is a fire alarm. So that time I have to dynamically think that what I should be doing so that I can complete the workflow. That is where my intelligence comes into picture. So orchestration can invoke intelligence. That would be the model which is required. So any model behind the scene, orchestration can say, okay, these five things I can do through rules, but for the next four things, I would need a dynamic decision to be made. And that's where the model would be called in. Model would see the context, would see the circumstances, would see the inputs provided and goals which has been set and
Mhm.
guardrails which are there, and based on that will decide the next course of action. So model execution would be done through this orchestration would call in, hey model, I need your help, I have this context, and based on that suggest me the next step. So I have followed few rules and then I applied intelligence also, so I can mix them together, no problem at all on that.
Okay, and so currently we are using foundation models through Bedrock. That's what our team has experimented with. But
Mhm.
what if, we want to experiment with custom models too? Is that allowed? Is that something we can do?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, depending on what type of services you are using, because AWS has been used by various customers and everyone has different use cases, right? Like you said, you want to use a custom model. So we have provisions for that. And I'll talk about it more, that what services you can use to ensure that you can build your own custom model should not be a problem on
Okay, thank you. And moving on to the next one here, I want to understand when you say it's getting trusted context,
that.
is
Mhm.
it is are you training or are you telling the model that hey, general knowledge information, but we want you to refer or take this internal our organization, our team data, refer to that when you are coming back with answers? Is that what we're doing next?
Exactly. So let's take an example. So my model can perform some prediction of sales data, right? Let's assume
Mhm.
it has knows mathematical calculation.
Right.
But if I just say, hey, give me forecast for my next 3 months sales, it may not have that context of my sales cycle. Maybe my sales cycle works differently. Maybe the last month was lower sales. This month I'm expecting higher sales. So I have to point my model to a place where it can gather the required data for making a prediction. And that place is what we sometimes refer as a RAG, or we call it grounding. So when I ask the model that how much you're predicting for next month's sales, it should know what was the previous month. It may need to perform averaging. It may look into the previous year's data and then predict what could be my next month's sales. So it needs grounding where it can verify the assumption it is making, and based on that, it can give me results. So that is what we refer as a RAG model, RAG, or your retrieval augmented generation, or what we refer as a grounding, to make your model domain specific for your domain.
So can I also say grounding is where it verifies into the existing data that you give it that its answers are coming back within the context?
Exactly. So yeah, if it is predicting, I should know that what is the basis of that decision. It should not be hallucinating, and that's where we can point it to specific source that, hey, model, you are operating in this circumstances, and based on that, you should be doing these type of things. So that's what we call grounding, or we sometimes refer it as a RAG pipeline.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And the last one. So I have two questions on this one.
Mhm.
First, I would love your expert answer, or I love your analogy answer. So a simple explanation of that term inference, because we use it in so much context, and sometimes the true understanding of the term inference is lost.
Mhm.
So first question there is, can you define or tell me more about inference here, please?
Yeah, pretty simple example. Like we all studied in colleges, right? And then we got a job or we started a business or whatever we did. So when
Mhm.
we were studying, we were into training. We were learning about stuff. Maybe not that much relevant, but we were still learning about. Maybe we were learning mathematics, we were learning statistics, we were learning accounting. And then when we came into field, we started leveraging that knowledge. So now if somebody says that, okay, I have to write this code, I may not have that exact code written before, but as I have written similar type of code using Pascal, COBOL, or Python, I can then go ahead and write those code. So when a model is getting learning done, that is what we call model is getting trained. But once this model has put into live production environment or maybe in testing phase where it says, okay, here is unseen data which you have not seen before, and now perform prediction based on that. So that is what we refer as inference. So technical term, but idea is when your model is in action, when it is working to resolve something which has not done, which is new for him, then that is into an inference phase.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I will remember that example because it resonates with me. So thank you. The next question I have here is, you mentioned something about running the AI workload close to the user, or
Mhm.
the question about where should we run. I always assumed we're always running things in the cloud. So whenever I have a workload up and running, I'm assuming that I'm sending the request or that server to go find information, work on something to the
Mhm.
cloud and come back with an answer. Is that assumption wrong?
No, it's not wrong, but it is one of the scenarios where you want to leverage cloud for it. But let me give an example. Let's say you are riding a smart car.
Okay.
Now, you don't want to rely on an internet connection to tell you that now you have to take next turn or stop or speed up and all. So what we need now, that smart card should be capable enough to take decision at that particular moment. We do not have time because of latency or connectivity to go to cloud, run the model and then get result and then take action. We
Mm.
need on the fly decision at that moment. We have to stop because there is a red light, or we have to go because there is a green light. So in that case, the intelligence is running within the car itself. Consider within a car you have a computer. On that, your model is getting executed and taking a decision to move forward. So in that case, it is better to have model in the car rather than getting it to cloud and then coming back from there.
Okay, so you're saying there are two paths for inference. One, you can send it to the cloud or keep inference in the cloud. The other, especially when you're considering latency or connectivity, and also where data lives or where data is getting generated, based on that, you can keep inference in the edge.
Exactly. Like you will say like sometime when we are doing live or live sessions, the automatically there is a caption being generated. Now it may not be going to cloud. It may run a small model within your environment and then get results from there and generate something or translate it into a different language. So it happens on the fly. And for that, I may need to go to cloud. I may have some small model, obviously not big as other models, but a small model trained specifically for that task and deployed as near to your customer where the data is or where the things are happening, like a factory, right? So maybe you have a smart camera who is monitoring a machine, and if it detects an anomaly, it has to stop the machine that very moment. I cannot rely on internet and cloud for that stopping. It could be a huge loss for me. So that's where I can run these models in a simplified version or in a compressed mode into the machines which are near to my data or near to the location where I want to run it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we talked about, the list of services. At some point, are we going to bring those and connect the services to these different, or I should say, five different fundamental architecture decisions?
Yeah, exactly. So when these services, once you understand that these are the core principle we have to stick to, then we can go ahead and then understand about that. What would be the architecture? What are the backbone associated with it? I'll answer one question which is into chat here. What does inference in the edge mean? Edge means a location of the cloud where we have some resources available. So edge is like if I have a wallet. So there is an edge which just near to which when it is connecting to outside world. Same place, same way there is a edge location of cloud where you have interaction point, and that's where your inferences can also run. We do not need to send the whole data to cloud. We could run into a edge location itself. Right.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
All right. So let me talk about that how all these things will put together. That what we have when we are talking about serverless architecture for AI workload, we would be mostly running into event-driven architecture or EDA is what we call. Very simple example for EDA is something happens, system wakes up, intelligence decide what needs to be done next, and that particular action is taken. So that's what we would be having a action of something happening, system wakes up, intelligence decide, and action is taken. That is what we refer as a event-driven architecture. Right. Now, moving forward on that, let me put like a flow of how things would look like. So event happens. As I said, event can be of different types. Don't think always that the event is like clicking some button. It could be a file upload. It could be a new message received by another service. It could be a data which got updated, like a temperature value got updated, or at a specific schedule. So that time an event would happen. An event would have that been perceived. Somebody has to understand that event has happened, and then some reasoning needs to be done. Like, okay, temperature gone beyond a specific point, what needs to be done in that case? Or this particular question has come, what needs to be done as a next step associated with that? So we need to decide and then act, and then it may trigger a new event which can feed into another system as well, right? Like we have thermostat in home, so that can detect, okay, there is a temperature going down, like you mentioned about AC, Krishna. So
Right.
temperature going up, that would then inform the AC unit that, okay, there's an event has happened, now you have to act and start air conditioning. When air conditioning reaches to a temperature, it would again shut it down. So that's how your event driven architecture can feed from each other and then keep on moving your workload forward. Should not be a problem on that.
Right.
Simple example I could put here, let's say a new support ticket comes in for your support or for better support, like we are building an agent also. So that support ticket can be analyzed by agent rather than a human, and then it can determine the priority associated with it. Afterward, it will take the appropriate action on that. So that's how your example of a event driven architecture would be looking like.
Okay, so what you're essentially saying here is almost like events are that backbone that trigger the agent to wake up. And once your AI system gets triggered by the events, it will see those changes and react without continuously like me monitoring or even running the infrastructure.
Exactly. You do not need to be like waking up, like you have smart cameras now who start recording only when they detect a motion,
Right.
right? There's no point to record a blank screen or a blank area where there's no activity happening. It is just eating up my space. So camera is smart. It detects there is a motion, and you can put a threshold: 10% motion, 20% motion,
Yes.
human detected, then only record, cat detected, then only record. And then based on that intelligence, it can trigger the event and then move forward to the next phases associated with it. So
Okay.
that's very easy when you start using services, which I'm mentioning some of them here, like Event Bridge, then you have SQS, you have Lambda. They all are able to use event driven architecture, and they are like building blocks when you are starting to build event driven architectures.
Okay, perfect. So that makes sense. So we talked about some services and now we're mapping them individually
Which
to,
individually where they connect,
yeah.
and it's not like it is only one layer they may connect to. Like some services may expand to multiple layers also because they have many functionalities within them. So like Lambda can be here also, Lambda can be into some other pre-processing, post-processing also. So it's not like one to one, but yeah, it is at least the service who would help you in those specific scenarios.
Okay, perfect. Now, I know step two, you said, once your system or your AI agent is awake and it wants to do certain things, there's the job of the orchestrator or orchestration needs to happen. Can we also maybe take a look similarly to about orchestration?
Yeah, same thing. So orchestration is what decides that what happens next. It's like a coordinator, right? So let's
Yeah,
say I go to a hotel's reception and say I am going to check in. So then their workflow starts. So they would say, okay, sir, give me your identity card or passport, and then they would check my reservation, then will give me the room. So that's
yeah,
how the rule-based automation is happening now. It's not like always there is to be rule. As we are using AI system, it could be a AI native orchestration also. So what if that person I give my passport to an hotel reception, he knows the workflow, but what if he is not able to find my booking? Now he or she has to use his intelligence that okay, what could be the problem? If he or she can ask me, sir, can you show me booking number, or can you tell me when you booked the system, or how you booked it? So that is where intelligence would come into picture. So you could have a rule-based orchestration which can follow a straightforward way, or you could have a AI native orchestration also. Another example here, like when you go to border crossing for a country, you mostly can scan your passport and go out from that because system is able to recognize you,
right.
right? But if there is a problem, that is a rule which has been created in the system that hey, Ashish has come, what is the passport, what is the validity, let's check any criminal history, if not, let him or her go.
Right.
But in case system is not able to decide, then it can invoke a take an intelligent decision that this person has to be sent to an immigration officer who would apply his intelligence, who would ask me some more question, and based on that decide whether I should be allowed or not allowed. So we may take rule-based decision also. We can take AI native orchestration also. Both can work together. It is not either or. They both are complementing to each other.
Okay, and just to also clarify, when you use the term AI native, what we're saying is that the AI agent will decide dynamically. There's no pre existing, like a
Workflow.
condition didn't match. So now the AI agent kicks into, all right, these are the things I can do. So maybe it has to go do deeper research. Maybe it even has to invoke a human in the loop. Any of
Exactly.
those decisions, it will decide dynamically.
Yeah, so that's what native is. Like it is able to reason when the request comes in. So whenever a request comes from user, it is able to dynamically decide and then move forward from there. And that can decide, okay, this time I have to use a tool or I have to perform a API call. Maybe I ask that what is the today's rate for USD to GBP conversion?
Right.
It may not know today's date. So that's what it has to go and check and feed data from somewhere else, and then it can move forward from there. So it will complete task, and that will not be done dynamically based on the context and information it has processed.
Okay, and these two are, they're not exclusive mutually. They can be
Exactly.
combined. Perfect.
Exactly, they can be combined. So, like, let's say we have a customer support example here. So, we have a
Okay.
new ticket coming up. It can route ticket based on the rule, like somebody has said, related to sales, related to marketing. They have selected a drop down. But
Right.
afterward, agent can perform analysis and say, okay, customer may have done severity level one, but I don't think this is severity one. Or customer may have selected a wrong escalation method. It can analyze and then put it into a right escalation path associated with that. So some initial filtering we could have done through the rule-based things, and then we could have done it through agent where intelligence is coming into picture.
Okay. This makes it so much more clear. Great example. Thank you. And going back to connecting this with AWS services. Oh,
Exactly. So you have it here. So step functions. Step function is what we call a orchestrator or a workflow manager, you could call it, which helps you in coordinating these things. So this happens, do this, afterward, go do this, after this, parallelly execute the task. So all this orchestration capabilities is what we can do through step function. And we have Bedrock Agent Core also, who could help you with all these type of coordination and orchestration if the need comes on that.
okay. Perfect. Okay. I want to move on, and before we diverge about what are the models we're using, I want
Mhm.
to ask. I mentioned we're playing with Bedrock right now, but we're also interested with our own model. So how does the two things, how does the path for those two look like when we move on to the model execution?
Yeah, and that's a common confusion sometimes customer have, that they think that, hey, if I'm using my custom model, then I cannot use serverless. But that's
Mhm.
not true. Even in the serverless fashion, you could go ahead and leverage your custom model. Should not be a problem on that. I'm giving you high level information here. So we have two serverless path if you want to go for. In
Mm,
case you want to use common model, like you want to use Cohere or you want to use Amazon Nova, then you can obviously use Bedrock, which has popular foundation model inside it. They are
right.
fully managed. We take care of patching, we take care of guardrail, we take care of their infrastructure needs and all, and you just go ahead and leverage them on a pay-per-use method. So that is what serverless method. Then you could also leverage for SageMaker serverless inferences. So you could bring in your own model, which you have customized for your requirement. You have given it domain knowledge, you have fine-tuned it, you optimize it, and then you can push it to SageMaker serverless inferences, where we can run these things also for you. So we can perform things in serverless fashion in both situations. Either you are using a common model or you are using a standard model which you have created on your own. That both situations are possible. Should not be a problem on that.
Okay, and would you maybe please give me an example of how this would look like?
Exactly. So let's see this one. So let's say we can use some Bedrock agent for performing some basic reasoning for a
Right.
triage ticket. A ticket happened, a Bedrock agent was able to find out what the problem is. Now, maybe your company has a different written policy than a model knows. So that time, maybe you have created a custom model who knows that what written policies and what next steps is to be taken. So maybe first thing happened in a Bedrock FM. Afterward, you invoked your custom model, which was running into SageMaker, and then you may for again go ahead and perform that response generation through Bedrock FN also. So mostly in agentic AI application, you would not just rely on one single model. You may have multiple agents, and they may use multiple models. So you could combine all of them. Should not be a problem at all on that. Like Bedrock FM first connected, then it calls in the custom model, and then again Bedrock FM comes into picture and delivers you the required. So agents can invoke different model. It should not be a problem. Every model can have different strategy, different execution method, and for that, these are the two services we have. One is Bedrock, and another is Amazon SageMaker AI. I'm only focusing on serverless services. You
Right.
can always run your model into EKS, or you can run into EC2, or you can deploy them through any other option which we provide. So there is always an option available on that.
Okay, perfect. So I love that even in the previous case, we can combine the rule based orchestration, AI native orchestration. Here we can use both. There's no, you have to use this or that. It is, you can use this and that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now,
Yeah,
moving
because
on.
AI application, sorry to cut you that, because AI application are relatively very new approach of doing things, right? And we
Mhm.
want to have flexibility for customers to use different type of methods or approach or different problem solving methods. That's why there's a lot of flexibility which you could leverage here. Yeah, let's
Okay,
go ahead.
yes, thank you. And can we talk a little bit more about the grounding and RAG step
Mhm.
at this point, please?
Makes sense. Yeah, let's talk about RAG. And there was a question in the chat also about RAG. So let me give a simple example or analogy to that. If you go into a lawyer's office or an advocate's office, you would see they have lots of books.
Hmm.
Now, I have a lawyer friend and I asked that, have you ever read all the books? She said, no, I have not read all the books, but I use them as a reference when needed. So sometimes she has to present a case and she has to take care of giving references to previous cases or previous judgment which has happened. So she has kept all these books, and then she has assistant who can go and grab those specific books when needed. That exactly same thing happens when we talk about grounding. So when you have a lot of information, your model may not know everything, and that's why you create a RAG system where you say, model, if you are not able to answer a question, here is the database, here is the knowledge base, go there and look for that specific information and give me result associated with that. So that is where we create those grounding information on that. Like if you go to chat GPT and say, what is my leave policy? Now, it
Right.
may not know what is your leave policy for your company because it doesn't have the context of Amazon or context of any other company. So, what we can do, okay, we could feed that knowledge to model as terms of grounding or RAG and say, okay, this is your leave policy. It understands, then it translates into a manner which is easily searchable, and afterward, it is able to get the results on that. So,
Mhm.
foundation model knows a lot, but they don't automatically know your latest or private business data, and that's why we need to have grounding on that. So RAG helps in those kind of cases. So what
Yes.
happens here is a simple flow. Your user requests, what is your travel policy? Now you could say it will search on S3 bucket or a document you have provided or you have knowledge bases. And from there, it would know, okay, in this model, in this knowledge base, it is returned what is the travel policy. Based on that, how much reimbursement can happen, what type of flights can be booked. And then it will be grounding its knowledge based on it, generate my response and give me a grounded answer and even put a reference that, hey, this is coming from policy number point 0.5, where it is mentioned about the travel allowances which a person can have.
Right. So I think the power of RAG is that it's not referencing or it's not using generic knowledge. It is explicitly going in and saying, if you can point me to a resource that is private or that is very close to what you have to follow within an org, within a team, then it will only get information relevant to that knowledge base. Okay.
Exactly. So
That's
maybe you have used or learned maybe maybe Python in your when you were studying, right? But
Mhm.
now you may have to use a different language. The
Yes.
concepts remain the same, but for that reference, I can go to the documentation and see how the syntax for loop looks like, or how a syntax for function calling would look like. So I can check that, and then I can leverage the knowledge from the documentation within my program itself. So that is where we are creating grounding or making model available for some specific information which we have in our corporate environment.
Okay. So without grounding, what would that look like?
Exactly. So it is giving a generic answer to you. So you could ask it that, hey, what is the temperature? And it could say temperature is 2 degrees. It may not know where I am, but if I give that, hey, I am into London and what is today's temperature,
Yeah.
that's what would be giving me a valid answer on that. So here with grounding, user is having enterprise knowledge base and then model is sitting on top of that knowledge base and giving you that specific context. Like when we do write a program or write some code for AWS, then we may have to follow some standards. If somebody
Mhm.
has joined newly, he or she may not know what those standards are. So we could
Yes.
integrate those standards into our automated tool like Quick or Kiro, and then it knows, okay, these are the standard to be followed. This is the way it needs to be defined. This is how the comment has to be added. This is the repositories which you can take into account. So that intelligence will be coming out once you have my model grounded into the knowledge bases we have created.
Okay, perfect. So from the picture here, I know one of the AWS services you have here is S3. So what else
Exactly.
are we using? There we go.
So S3 is there. S3 is obviously a really great place to keep things, but Bedrock has itself or knowledge bases are there. And then if it is a big index we are talking about, we can be leveraging Amazon open source services in a serverless fashion. Again, you do not need to set up a cluster. You could go ahead and deploy your indexes and get started from there. So that's how things work.
Okay, fantastic. And now to the last step, which is all about where is this inference happening? How do we decide? Is it in the cloud? Is it in the edge? And like someone asked and you explained, the edge is where the connection happens between the cloud
Mhm.
and the end user. So next step, how do we decide where inference is happening?
Yeah. So it depends on where you want to run it. That is my favorite answer for any question that it depends where you want to run it. So it can happen in the place you want it to run. So
Okay.
run AI at the right place based on the latency requirement. Like I gave you example of a smart car. I
Right.
cannot wait for a stop decision to be made by cloud, and that till that time I would have an accident. I don't want that. Then connectivity, right? And model size. Some model may be requiring you to go to cloud. Let's say I want to predict the stock prices,
Mm.
or maybe the whole stock indexes into the NYC. That time we would be having problem in running into a small model. So we need a bigger model. So depending on your latency requirement, your connectivity requirement, model sizes, or where the data is generated, you could go ahead and do these things. So not every AI decision needs a round trip to cloud. You could decide it. Right now, like say talk about a credit card machine. Credit card machine have some intelligence built into them. But if it is a complicated case, they may refer to cloud and then get your application sorted on that. So that type of thing can happen if the need is. So you can run things on devices. So for that, we have a service called IoT Greengrass. Once you have it, so maybe it could be your smart cameras, maybe your some physical devices which are running into a factory, or maybe some by you probably have seen some small computers where you can run it. So that can run IoT Greengrass, and on that you can run your application, or it could be on network edge. AWS is like 300 plus or 400 plus edge locations all over the world which are near to user, so that can run there, or it can run into cloud, which is AWS regions. That is where services are available like Bedrock or SageMaker serverless interfaces. So you decide where you want to run it. Options are available, and like giving a smart car example again, so the decision of how much is it, how it has to operate in the road needs to be done on the edge itself. But if I'm now talking about efficiency of that particular car, that data I can send to cloud, and there I have a better model who can compare its efficiency with other cars and then give me result associated with that. So it's decided, you decide on what decisions require need to have less latency, what are my connectivity, and based on that I can start taking decisions, should not be a problem.
Okay, so based on the requirements, you get to decide
Exactly.
which one is best. Okay.
So
And
yeah, offline or local data, if you have, then run it on edge. If you have response near user, run it on network edge. And then complex reasoning, probably you should be going for cloud core. That's how it should be working.
okay, and wrapping this up with what are the services that we're leveraging
Yeah.
here?
So yeah, IoT Greengrass, Lambda at the edge, that is there. Then you can use Bedrock also. It is in Cloud Core and SageMaker serverless inferences. So you could leverage them. I'll take a question here that it says that does Edge have Bedrock Agent Core? So Edge does not have Bedrock Agent Core, but you can run Lambda on that, and through that you can perform execution. Should not be a problem on that. So I hope that has given a lot of idea about how we can run these inferences.
Yes, it has. Thank you. So, one last thing, can you maybe show an example of how everything will come together?
Yeah, why not? So yeah, that is required. Like we understood the concepts and how it is implemented in real life. So let's talk about that. I'll show you some common examples of application in the same model, that how you could create the similar architecture into cloud too. Let's talk about that. So if I talk about a traditional architecture, Krishna, it looks like this. So in a traditional application, I'm talking about event-driven application, there would be application layer. Then there would be an orchestration layer associated with that. Afterwards, you would have a service there where all the calculations are happening, and then
Mhm.
you will be storing the data. So this is a traditional application. In AI application, things go little differently. It is still a layered approach, but it has a different way of implementing things. So let me create that mapping for you, that how application which is traditional would differ for a AI based application. Right. Now, I know we have limited time, so I'll not go into too deep here, but I'll at least explain some example later. So, so we have application layer. Now it becomes your event layer here. So event trigger or inference layer, interface layer, which we already have. It could be API call, it could be event-driven architecture. Then your orchestration is can happen as a pre-processing layer. Like mostly agentic AI application, we may talk or we may interact with the prompt. Prompt is not formatted to be feed to machine directly. It has to be digitized, it has to be controlled in a way that machine can understand it. So that's why we may want to have some pre-processing happening. So that is where we may have a pre-processing layer before it goes to the intelligence layer. So that's what the second layer would look like. Then service I can do through inference. So inference can happen through model execution, it can happen through RAG pipeline. Afterward, I may also need some post-processing, a
Mm.
machine generated response, but I want it to be in a way that a human can understand, because it is all about human connection to the machine. And that's why we want to have a post processing or decision layer also on top of it. Afterward, I would be having a output or a storage layer where I would use my knowledge base or data store. So these are all connected together. Similar architecture, a layered architecture, but instead of having just a single service layer, what we have done, we have also added pre-processing and also post-processing, because the responses coming from machine may not well suit to human as we move forward on that.
Okay, thank you. I think the mapping is really helpful for me to understand from traditional uh, event-driven architecture to how does this map for an actual AI application. And this is
Exactly.
everything is serverless, so that's great. I'm saving a lot of money here, and I love that.
Yeah, and that's why I always say that the concept you have learned before is not going to be wasted. The concepts are same, but they may be being implemented little differently associated with how it works. So these are the 5 layers in which you are able to get like lots of things done. And I'll show you some example so that you understand that how all these things are done into real life. Let's talk about some example or some use cases associated with that.
Yes, great.
So, use cases, I would say that okay, we have a retail customer service agent. All right, that customer service agent is common thing. Hey, I have a return. How I would get my return or how I would refund these. So we can run a use case here. So customer submits a support request. He or she says, I want to return this order. Request has to be prepared and passed to an agent, right? That may be into a chat interface or maybe an email. We have to extract it, send it to model. So we need to do pre-processing on that.
Yes.
Agent would come in. Agent will understand the intent, will check the order status, retrieve the return policy, and then it will check whether it is a valid claim or not. It will check return eligibility, and then a response would be generated to the customer that can be done or not, and it will be persisted somewhere else also. Same thing. So here, if I put a layer on that, this is 5 layers are happening here.
Yes.
So we have event trigger, which is a customer request coming in, reprocessing. Request has to be transformed in a way that model understands it. Then model comes into picture. It checks the return policy where RAG and all will come into picture. And then post processing, we may have decided whether we have to approve the claim of refund or we have to deny it based on the conditions. And that output would be stored and will be also given to the customer also. So that's how it would look like. So now if I map this to AWS application, this is how it would look like. For my event, I could use API gateway, or it could be a chatbot UI, or it could be a support portal who triggers an agent interaction through Bedrock. Then we can implement pre-processing through Lambda function. We may
Mm.
run our inferences or model on Bedrock agent. Then we can also perform all pre-process post-processing on Lambda, and we can then have return agent response either UI or store it into S3 bucket. So that's how we should be able to have all these type of things that we can leverage through architectures.
Yes, thank you. And I think in the third step, the inference step is where you also point out we can do grounding and RAG. So that
Mhm.
combines everything into the third phase there, the third step there.
Exactly. So, like when my agent has to know, maybe for my perishable product, the return policy is different. Maybe for personal product, the policy is different. So that's where it need to know the policy, and that's where grounding would be required. So that's where we can have some connection of existing knowledge with the knowledge of our company itself.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I know we're almost at time, but if we have time for one more thing, are there any design considerations that someone working on this should think about? Or if you want
Yeah.
another example, then yes.
So let me talk about design consideration on that, and this will apply to every single layer which we do, right? So we have so many slides, we can't cover it, but we'll share the slides with you all so you can see this. But some design consideration are important. Now, people would say, hey, we have not talked about resilience or observability. So these are not like independent things. Every layer you are building, you have to think about resilience, observability, security, cost optimization, extensibility. So these will be combined together in every single layer. We don't want to bolt on resilience afterward. While you are creating that layer, from the very first day, it should be resilient, it should be observable, secure, optimized, and extensible, so it can keep moving forward with the requests we come in. So that's how these are some consideration which goes across layer. They are not limited to one single layer.
Perfect. So these are all that is you should consider when you're thinking of developing an agentic AI system, serverless, and always think about these at every layer, not just one layer.
Not just one layer.
Okay, perfect. And I think,
We
sorry.
are almost on time, but I want to summarize it with one example here, which can be reference for everyone who want to understand how it is implemented in real life. We'll send this link and it will be in the PDF also. So this is a blog post which talks about how customer have created a real KYC architecture. Know your customer. That is a very common thing in every situations or every bank or every financial institution. They want to know it. So I will put this link into the chat also right now. That gives you understanding on how your solution is built, what is the role, what are the solutions associated, how the agents are being connected. So whole information is there, foundation model, components associated. So it's a great blog post to see how this serverless solution has been implemented and what are the nitty-gritty details associated with it. So I'm putting the link in the chat, and will be there into slides also, so everyone would know about how the implementation happens. Like here, we may have some connectivity option to go to on premises also. Like some decision we can take internally in AWS, but for some maybe we have to run and rely on a model running on premises. So that type of connectivity can also be created, and that's what we have done into this architecture. So I hope that would give a lot of learning point for our customers as we move forward.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go through this myself and help my team. Thank you so much, Ashish. This was very helpful. I appreciate you
Brilliant.
taking the time to answer all the questions. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. And thanks for asking all the question. And for people who are watching, we were not able to cover every single thing, but the slide had more material. We'll share this slide deck on Tech Creator platform. So you should be able to go through all of these as we move forward. Give me +1 if you are able to understand the concept we have discussed, and then we will move on to the bedrock stage. Thank you, Krishna, for asking all these questions. And we will be now getting uh, the next team on stage, which is Jeff and Nisha. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ashish.
Hello, Jeff. Hello, Nisha. Good to see you here. Hello.
Hi, Ashish. Hi, Jeff.
Morning.
Hello.
Slides coming through?
Yeah, all good. So I'll get off the stage, and Jeff and Nisha, I'll let you drive it. Let me know if you want to share a few things.
Share things about what?
I think the slides.
Are they
I think
showing?
slide. If you have slides to share, no, right? If not, then let the conversation flow.
Isn't the slides aren't showing?
We're not showing them yet.
I am trying to add it, but I'm not able to add the
Okay.
slides, Ashish. I'm not sure. Jeff, can you please share again?
I am. It's not coming through.
Hopefully now.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
there now.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank
Let
you.
me remove myself.
Before we start, just one thing. There are a lot of questions on the Discord also about when the workshop is going to start. As always, after the behavioral session, that's when it's going to start, and we'll answer more questions on the logistics then. But for now, enjoy Jeff and Nisha talking through the behavioral section.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for your time. We spent about 25 minutes here on the behavioral topic. My name's Jeff Escott. Currently, I'm a principal architect here at AWS, and I've been mentoring, leading, and promoting solution architects for over 2 decades in my career. I got a real passion for growing the next group of successful solution architects, and through the program that we have here, I'm just really happy to be a small part of your own personal journey. So again, thanks for taking the time today. I'll let Nisha introduce herself.
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on your Saturday. My name is Nisha Dektawala. I am a senior solution architect on Partner Core Tech team with AWS for over 4.5 years now, where I support partners as they progress through their AWS partner network journey, which includes their technical validations, as well as guiding partners on their go-to-market strategy, which requires publishing their solutions on Marketplace. So thank you. Going into the session, let's talk about why facilitation is as an facilitation in the SA is the superpower. So, Jeff, I have heard you say that the best solution architect meetings are the ones where you barely talk. And that sounds very counterintuitive to me. So we are the expert in the room. And if we are not sharing our expertise, so what are we doing there? If you can help me understand that.
Yeah, it feels funny, right? Even when you say it. And I get why it sounds backwards, right? But let me flip it on you. Think about the last time a customer followed through on something that you recommended. Was that because your slide deck was amazing? Or was it because the customer or your manager or your team, like they talked through the problem themselves and they arrived at a conclusion that they themselves felt like they owned?
So when you put it like that, yeah, I understand. And I also follow through usually happen when they felt like it was their idea.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thesis, behind today. The essay who talks less and asks better questions, they tend to drive bigger outcomes. They tend to get more results. Now don't get me wrong. This is not because expertise doesn't matter. Expertise absolutely still matters, right? It's kind of what got you in the door in the first place to even be having the conversation. However, when you deliver expertise as a monologue, right, all it does is create information transfer.
Mhm.
Whereas delivering expertise through facilitation creates ownership, it creates discussion, and that creates relationship. Those are two very different things.
So I think I starting to understand and get what you are trying to say. So can you help me walk through what you mean by the presenter trap, and what does that look like in real practice?
Yeah. And I think most of us have fallen into this pattern. I have myself. I've seen so many of the people I've worked with, over time. And it's something I talk with, just about everybody about is this, presenter trap. It starts with, someone asks you to come in and talk about cloud migration or serverless, just like Ashish was doing, or whatever is the hot topic. So you do what you feel like you're responsible for. You spend days building a deck, right, which is a lot of manual work. You show up with 47 slides. You talk for 45 minutes straight, right? You're having that monologue. The people in the room, what do? They nod politely. Maybe they ask a couple clarifying questions at the end. And then you get that classic response.
Basically, can you share us the slide, or can you please send us those notes and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, can you give me the materials you were just showing? It's like, well, who were you listening to me, or were you reading the materials, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Can you send me the slides? And then what do you get after that? You get radio silence.
Mhm.
Maybe 2 weeks later, you send them an email or a Slack message, and you say, and what do they get back? They send back, we're still reviewing it internally. We're talking about it. It was great information, which are all like really polite ways of saying, thank you, but we've moved on to something else.
And that's very painfully familiar. So what breaks the cycle, Jeff?
Yeah. So, let me give you some real contrast. And, speaking from my own experience, right? Earlier this year, I had an engagement with a customer. It's the same setup. It was this large enterprise customer, and they wanted me to talk about, modernizing their payment platform, right? It's a space I work in. If I think about what the old me would have done, right? I would have built this deck around microservices, event-driven architecture, a lot of stuff Ashish was just talking about, like the whole 9 yards, about how they could modernize their payment system, like what it would look like. Instead, I showed up with 4 slides. And of those, they were really just conversation starters with questions on them.
Yeah. So what happened?
Yeah. So 2 hours later, in the room, their CTO, their VP of engineering, and their head of product, the 3 of them, they aligned on a modernization strategy by identifying which workload to move first, and committed in the room amongst themselves about the funding request that they were going to go after to secure the work to do this. Now, it wasn't because I had this brilliant slide deck of what serverless architecture looks like. Instead, by having fewer slides and filling the room with questions, I created the space for them and all of us to think together through the problem. Like, we spent the time problem solving. With my expertise as a guardrail in the conversation versus my expertise in me being the main event in all of that.
Yeah. So what you are saying is those 4 slides drove more outcome than those 47 slides ever could. And so what was different about that session, Jeff?
Yeah, the difference was the role that I played in it.
Yeah.
In the first pattern, right? where I'm doing the monologue, right? Like I'm the performer. Everyone's there. They're watching me. They're listening to me. There's not this happening. There's not the dialogue. In the second, I look at my role as I'm the process guide. I'm still using my technical knowledge. However, I'm using that to ask the right questions, to redirect, unproductive debates that are happening in the room, and connect the dots between people in the room in terms of like maybe what one person is saying versus what another person is hearing, or what someone is maybe asking for versus what they're really needing. It's my expertise shows up in the questions I ask, not the answers that I personally give. Like I said, I'm the guide.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. So how do you make that shift? And what is different in how you prepare and how you show up? Like what do you, what is the difference?
Yeah, and it's, for me, it just comes with a lot of the experience that I have and the experience that I try to transfer to everyone that I'm working with. And I kind of broke it down into like these three mental shifts that I've made over the years, and I make sure I kind of use these as like tenets a little bit as I'm preparing for things. So, the first one is your job's to not be the smartest person in the room. Again, you're an expert, but don't flex the expertise, right? Your job is to make the room smart.
That's very interesting. Can you help me unpack that for me?
Yeah. So when I'm in presenter mode, right? When I'm the main event, right? When I'm driving a monologue, like the old me, I have this internal metric that in my head, I'm like, did I cover all the material? Did I get through all 47 slides? I got 5 minutes left. I got 6 slides to go to. So what do? I start rushing through everything. When I'm in facilitator mode, my metric is, did the room arrive at a good decision, right? Did we get to a decision, right? Those lead to completely different behaviors. In presenter mode, I'm worried about what I forgot to say. I'm worried about, am I still on script? I'm worried about, I spent all this time making all these slides. I want to show them to everybody. In facilitator mode, I'm worried about, what did we forget to think through? What questions were left unasked or unanswered?
Okay. So then what is the second shift you would have to explain to me?
Yeah. The second one, it's about getting people talking, right? Decisions happen when people say things out loud, not when they hear things. There's a real power in the verbalization of something. This is one of the things that changed for me, and it drives me in how I'm working. Like in that session I was talking with you about just a few minutes ago, right? If I'm facilitator, if I'm presenter, right? I'm talking through all my slides. The CTO, the VP of engineering, the head of product, they're nodding along, right? That's great. I'm maybe getting some visual cues and I'm thinking, I'm doing great. They're nodding their heads, right? But they're just doing it politely.
Yeah.
But the moment that they verbalize something like, I think we should move the payment service first in our priority, because that's when commitment forms, right? Someone said it out loud, right? They made it real. Something happens psychologically when people articulate a position in front of their peers. They own it. It becomes sticky, right? Your job is to create those moments when people say things out loud.
I cannot agree more that my job is to create those moments where people say things out loud. And what would be the third one?
Yeah. Your value in essay is really in asking the questions, not being the answer. And like, I know I said about expertise and, we want to be like these content authors or content providers stuff. We got to realize it's like content is really easy to get access to nowadays. People can look up stuff that I know, right? Absolutely. About what are the features of different services and stuff like that. And I think this is the hardest one, because our entire career has trained us to be answer engines, right? Come talk about containers. I'm going to come regurgitate a bunch of stuff about containers, right? Here's 14 patterns. Customer asks about data lakes. Here's a reference architecture. right? All these things can be looked up really easily now. Okay, so what's my role? My role is to use all that experience, use all that knowledge to kind of draw out the right questions from my audience to get them talking and thinking, verbally committing things. Like knowing the 14 container patterns that gives me that knowledge to ask the right questions, right? I could, things like, given your team and skill set, which of these patterns gives you the fastest path to production without a 6-month learning curve, right? That kind of a question is more valuable than me just reading aloud what 14 container patterns are.
I agree with that, but I want to push back a little bit though. So I have come across several customers literally ask us to present, and they send an email which says, hey, can you come show us XYZ, and can you present that to us? So how do you reconcile that in those scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect segue on what to talk about next, which is reframing the request, because you're right. Customers, management, your team, people ask us to present, right? They've honestly been trained on asking us to present.
Yeah.
But I've learned that what they ask for and what they need, like, they're often not the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, let me give you a couple of real world examples of how I've reframed requests, like just in the past year.
Okay.
First one, customer emails me. Same thing you're talking about, Nisha, right?
Yeah.
Come present on containers for our platform team, right? In our world, we used to get that a lot. We still get that a lot. Hey, how long we have? Maybe we have an hour. Okay. On the surface, right, that sounds like a presentation request, right?
Yep. Exactly.
But I took the time, I called the sponsor and I asked some question. And what emerged was this. The platform team is kind of having a turf war with the application team about who owns the container platform. Interesting. The presentation was really a request to help them build a case. So I reframed it. Instead of presenting container best practices, I proposed a 90-minute working session where both those two teams were able to kind of collaboratively define an operating model, And I presented to them. I said, what does something like that sound like? They said, that sounds like something really appealing to us, right? And at the end of the session, they had a shared document that they were able to sign off on. Why? Because they were talking out loud and they were making those commitments. We put the commitments on paper, no turf war needed.
I think I can relate this so well because I recently attended a 90 minutes working session in person, and I felt like I learned so much from that working session rather than going through this presenter deck. So basically what I'm gathering is the container knowledge was still relevant. You just deployed it differently.
Yeah, exactly. I talked about before, like expertise still is not, it's still in style. It's just how you use it. Like my container expertise, gave me the credibility to get into the room and stay in the room. However, it was my facilitation that provided the greater value when I was in the room.
Yeah, agree.
So second example, getting asked again, we need a presentation on cloud migration for our leadership, right?
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? It translates to like their leadership team needs to commit on a migration strategy, and they don't know how to get 7 executives in a room aligned on it. So I reframed it. I said, let's run a decision-making session where your leadership team picks the first 3 workloads and agrees on the success criteria of those migrating, right? Same room, same people, but instead of me talking for an hour at them and them going back to their desks, probably asking for the slide deck, right? Facilitate discussion, prioritize with 3 things versus this universe of everything. We walked out with commitments on what those 3 should be.
So basically, you work you work on a success criteria and work back from that success criteria. So how do you propose that reframe without insulting a customer who have initially asked you for a presentation? You would say no to the presentation. Like, how would you handle these scenarios?
Yeah, it's a tricky one there, right? So first, I'd never say no. Like, they asked for something, you're going to
Yeah.
do something, right? However, as you and I spoke about earlier, I think everyone's so trained on just asking for a presentation on something, especially for us, like, who are in, like, vendor or partner roles. It's like you get asked for that a lot. So you don't say no. Instead, I just try to reframe it with a question around, like, would it be even more valuable if we did this instead of just a presentation, right? And getting it towards, like, what's an outcome you want from this? Because a presentation really doesn't drive an outcome. It's knowledge transfer. You can look that stuff up. So the language I use might be something like, I could absolutely present on that topic. However, I'm wondering, would it be more useful for you and your team if you walked out of that session with actual decisions made rather than just information received? I can design a session for you that gets you there. When you reframe it like that, right, almost nobody will say no to that kind of an offer, because that's more valuable.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely.
And then the third one that I have is, give us a serverless overview for our developers. What they needed was actually help in deciding which of their existing 12 APIs they should migrate to serverless first, right? Based upon traffic patterns and team readiness. Now, deciding which of those APIs should go serverless is different than give us an overview of serverless. Me simply giving you an overview of serverless doesn't help you decide which of those 12 you should prioritize. So I proposed a prioritization exercise where developers who know these APIs scored their own APIs on different dimensions in terms of business criticality and readiness and technical debt. 90 minutes later, they ranked their own list of those 12 APIs. They had their own starting point, and they were verbalizing that in their own meeting. No need for a 47-page slide deck overview of what is serverless.
So now let me ask you one uncomfortable question. What happens when those solution architects do not make those shift, and what is the cost of staying in that presenter mode?
Yeah, it is an uncomfortable question. And I recognize I've been in that presenter mode. I recognize when other people are in that presenter mode. First, I think it's subtle at first, which is why people don't often notice it. You become a content delivery mechanism, and it can feel good. Come give a presentation. You gave a presentation. You made a bunch of slides. The customer sees you as the person who shows up with slides. You get invited to information sessions, right?
Yeah.
But slowly, you don't get invited to decision sessions, right? You're in the room when things are explained, but you're not in the room when things are decided. And over time, you stop being the first call, right? You're no longer, you're just kind of a nice to have in certain situations. You're not a must have.
Okay, so that's basically a slow fade. Can you help me contrast these two patterns more directly so that it is more like understandable?
Yeah. So you have, like, the presenting essay and you have the facilitating essay, right? The facilitating essay is asking questions, not just giving answers, is leading discussions versus putting slides on a page, right? They're facing the room versus kind of with their back to the room, pointing at a bunch of slides, like they're surrounded by the group. So think about what happens at each type of meeting. At the presentation, the customer leaves with information they still have to process. Why? Because you threw a lot of stuff at them, right? They need their own internal meetings to discuss what you just said, because you probably said too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You have slides that they couldn't digest all of it. They're loaded with content and material. And then they still need to kind of go build consensus. Guess what? Without you there, right? They've moved on to a decision meeting and you're not in the decision meeting. And all of that takes weeks. You might get the "we'll circle back" email after a while from them. At the facilitated session, when you're the facilitating SA, that processing of the information is happening in real time. The consensus is formed in the room. The decision got made when the energy was high. There's nothing left to circle back on.
So basically, you are doing the same thing. So the gap is not just about the style, it's about the speed and the outcome, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Speed, confidence, durability of what got discussed and decided there. Again, when a decision gets made by a group in a room with everyone hearing it, right? It commits, it sticks. When a recommendation gets emailed as a PDF after a presentation, it competes with 50 other things in somebody's inbox, right?
Yeah.
I've seen working sessions, generate commitment and next steps that happen within days because you got that commitment in the room. Energy was high. Whereas I've seen presentation follow-ups stretch into months of polite silence. The pattern to me is consistent enough that I almost entirely stopped building decks entirely.
So there is something here is about becoming indispensable too. So if you are the person who helps them make decision.
Yeah, right. When you help people make decisions, right, they want you to come back. The presenting essay gets a "thank you. We'll take it from here. Email us the slides." The facilitating essay gets "when can we do this again?" Right? When you're helping people get outcomes, like they want that. They want more of that. One builds the presenting essay. It's a one-time interaction. It's transactional. The other one builds a relationship. And from a business perspective, the essay who builds relationships, right? That's the one who gets pulled into the next engagement and the one after that. And you become the trusted partner, not the vendor with a slide deck.
Yeah, I really like that, calling it out as a trusted partner or trusted advisor. So for everyone listening, if you are brought into this idea, what should they try this way?
Yeah. So, a little homework, one thing, next customer meeting you have or whatever kind of meeting you had, try this. Replace your opening slide with one that's a well-crafted question. Write it down beforehand, workshop it with people that you trust on your team. Make it a question that forces, the audience to articulate what success looks like. Something like, if we were sitting here 6 months from now and this went perfectly, what changed? What outcome did we get? What's the result of this? And just listen. Right? See what happens to the energy in the room when you lead with curiosity instead of "here's my agenda of stuff to get through."
Yeah. So, and that sets up for the next week. Going through this with the customer, I think that will set up for the next week for the next outcome.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly. Because there's obviously a big question here, right? And I said it, like, I almost entirely don't build slide decks. Okay, if we're not doing that, if we're not building slide decks, what are we building, right? How do you prepare for that facilitated session versus the presenting essay session? Great teaser. Next week we will cover how to design a working session that drives a decision in 60 minutes or less. The preparation, it is different. It's more internal. It's more work on you. Right? But you're trying to get a better result. Honestly, though, it's a lot more fun for me, both in the prep and the execution, than just building my 147-page slide deck.
This is I have learned so much from our discussion today. So, what my key takeaways from this conversation is those slides, those monologues, or even all those nods. Silences, and all these will repeat, but it feels productive, but it produces nothing. So basically, SA's job is to make the room smart, not be the smart. And other key takeaway I'm taking from this is decisions happen when customers say things out loud, not when they hear things. And my third key takeaway from here is your value is in the question and not in the answer. So work back from what you are trying to solve or what you are trying to fix it, rather than just going through presentation mode and then people will get lost. So every those presentation request is a decision request in disguise, basically. So those are the key takeaways I think I took from our conversation. Did I miss anything, Jeff?
No, you're spot on.
All right. So I'm looking forward to my next session. Thank you so much for all your knowledge sharing with me today, Jeff.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. And remember your homework. Try that one question opening sometime between now and next week, and we'll see you all next Saturday.
Great discussion, Jeff and Nisha. Yeah, really, really great. Very eye-opening points, like somebody was mentioning in the chat. People just go in a presenter mode without knowing it. So it's good, like you were able to bifurcate between them. I'm sure next week would be really more interesting, where we actually do few stuff on that. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let me now add. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Let me now talk about the next section, which is about facilitation. Is SA Power is done. Now we are talking about hands-on workshops there. Prasad, you want to add something? And thanks, Jeff and Nisha. I'll for now remove you from the stage. Maybe you are on mute, Prasad.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, before we talk about hands-on workshop, I'm going to just talk quickly about, people are still asking questions about how to access quiz and how to do that. So I'm going to share my screen and very quickly talk about a couple of logistics, and then we should be good. Share the screen.
So just to summarize, like you need to register for workshop before you can attempt it. Joining live session can happen anytime, but for workshop you have to register. And we send out registration emails every week, every Thursday, and you have time from Thursday to Saturday to join the workshop. You need a business email to join workshops.
Thanks, Ashish, for reiterating. And your quizzes, knowledge checks, badges is completely different from your workshop. To access the quiz, you need to go to besa.techexpert.io. You would have
Get
registered
a
using your
little bit
personal
more.
email.
Yeah, that would be nice.
You would have accessed it using your personal email, log into it, and once you log into it, you will be having dashboard here. I'm going to, yeah, in the dashboard, Agentic AI, continue, and there is where your actual learning would happen in terms of your quizzes and whatever video that you are seeing right now. You can obviously continue accessing it on YouTube, or otherwise we will be uploading it in every week. Like, week 1, similarly we have week 2, we will be uploading it here. For the slides, everyone is asking about how they can access slides. Just click here, slides, and then you will be able to access the slides here, even download it from here. That's pretty much the video, and the slides are available here. And the quiz is here. So you can go to quiz, start the quiz, and once you do it, you would be able to attempt to get the next quiz, attempt the next batch. In terms of now Discord, we will be sharing as soon as Parna and Anmol would be completing the workshop walkthrough. We will be sharing it here in the Discord. Please use week 2 workshop support for asking the questions, right? And then workshop access code would be shared here. I'll be going to press that button in a moment once we are ready. So yeah, that's all. I'll stop my
Yep,
screen share.
thank you. Yeah, and workshops have to be pre-registered. If you have not, we will not be able to provide you workshop now. Watch the videos we will be sharing, which is already on YouTube. So you are prepared for the next week workshop, but we cannot provision workshop for somebody who has not registered. All right. Sorry if I'm reiterating the same thing, but now let me add Parna and Anmol on the stage, who would be doing the walkthrough of what the workshop is. Specifying here, workshop, this what they are showing is a walkthrough, like some basic understanding, and then you will get access of 24 hours if you have registered for that. So thanks, Parna and Anmol, for doing it.
Thank you. Ashish, can you bring my screen share? All right. Thank you so much. Hey, hi everyone, and thanks Anmol also for joining me. Before we start on a short walkthrough, I'm not going to be going through every step of the workshop too. Anmol has created this wonderful a demo of the workshop, which will be shared with you shortly. So the whole YouTube has the detailed way in which Anmol is doing the entire workshop. So you can watch that for every step, and you can keep it open at your side, and you can play and pause it if you get stuck at any step. Okay, so this is more like giving you an overview of what you will be doing and what you can expect in this workshop, what extra things that you can go ahead and see through the console, any tips, and Anmol will also be adding in a few tips as and when required. All right, so let's begin. So what is this workshop about? uh, so in the last workshop we were actually building agents and deploying them on agent core. In this workshop you're going to be actually building agents using Lambda, and we are going to be leveraging serverless services such as step functions, event bridge, SQS, SNS. Okay, so you're going to be using all these services and actually deploying your agents on them. And we are going to be exploring two types of patterns. So there were a number of questions during Ashish's session, actually, like what's the difference and all. You'll come to know once you go through the workshop, or if you don't have an event account, like Ashish said, you've not registered for it, then you can at least watch the video that Anmol has made, and then you can understand where or under what situation you would use serverless. You can go through the instructions, you can go through this introduction. So there is an introduction section here, and you can give it a nice read. So there are good concepts over here as well that will also help you understand why are we using serverless and how it can help you. All right, okay, so what are you actually going to be building using these two patterns that you're going to be trying out? So these are the two patterns that you're going to be going through. One is the orchestration pattern and one is the choreography pattern. Okay, so initially in the first part of the workshop, you're going to go through the choreography. Now, what is choreography? Just like a dance, right? The different parts of a dance group perform independently. They are not really tied up with each other. Okay, so there is loose coupling. So similarly, in a choreography, there are multiple agents. So you're going to be building an AI application which is more like a travel helper. It's going to be planning, it's going to be looking at weather conditions, it's going to be looking at your flight routes based on your preferences, and then coming up with your itinerary, etc., right? Or a decision where a human will either approve of the itinerary or will not, or there could be auto approval as well. So all this is going to happen in this AI application, and it's going to be built of multiple agents. So you can see over here, there are going to be 3 different agents that you're going to be working with, and they are going to be talking to each other using the event driven architecture, using event bridge. Okay, so they are not aware about each other, they are just talking to each other through event driven architecture. Through events they are going to be emitting, and they are going to be agents which are going to be responding to that. Okay, so this is choreography. And the second part of your workshop, it's orchestration. So orchestration, as you know, in an orchestra there is somebody who is running the entire choir, right? It's asking different parts of the system to play at different points of time. Similarly, in orchestration also, there is a central component which is actually coordinating amongst the different agents and deciding when to call whom. Okay, so that's the 2 different types of patterns that you're going to be exploring in this workshop. If you want a little overview about what exactly an agent is and how does it actually do this entire reasoning, then there is a part in the workshop concepts itself which you should go and read up. This is optional, this is more of theoretical. If you've not done the previous workshop, not attended session 1, and you don't know what exactly is an agent, just go through that. And in brief, I can tell you that a agent is one which is comprised of a looping mechanism where it takes context, it makes observation, it takes information, then it reasons about it. Once it reasons, it realizes I need to act on it. So then for acting, it needs tools. Then it goes and picks tools. So it will go and pick tools. Now using those tools, the agent is now going to run those tools. So remember, the picking of the tool is done by your model or the LLM. Okay, the agent is not picking the tools. It is just giving information that, hey, these are the set of tools that I have. Which one should I choose, in short? It will then run the tool. The agent is going to run the tool. That will bring in more information, right? Now that it's got more information, now with that updated context and information, again, it will start reasoning that, have I reached my goal or do I need to know more? So this is called as the agentic loop, which you are going to be seeing even in this particular workshop. Okay, so this is just a brief summary. If you want to understand what an agent is or an agentic loop is, this is what it does. Anything you want to add, Anmol, before I go ahead?
No, Prerna, I think you covered everything for module 1 and this work. Is it?
Okay.
So they can just go.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Anmol. And basically, what you're going to be building is these agents are going to be deployed on Lambda. And to write that code in Lambda, we are going to be using the Strands SDK, right? So it's like a light Python SDK. And this SDK helps you to build that entire agent within Lambda. It will do the reasoning, it will do the tool selection, it will do the tool response parsing, everything. Even the session management, it can do that for you. Okay, so just in short, if you think of this as your Lambda, okay, this blue box over here, this is your Lambda, okay, and you have your code over there written using the Strands SDK. What it's going to do is, after the user sends in a query, this agent is going to compose the whatever the user said plus whatever instructions that you've provided to the agent. If you recollect, the agent would have some kind of persona, personality, role definition, or system prompts, as we call it, right? It will gather that, the user input, plus the array of tools or the tool description it has. All of that together, it will send to the LLM through the Bedrock APIs. It will talk to the LLM, and then the LLM will say, okay, so this is the goal that needs to be achieved. This is the information. What can I do next? So what it will do is, it will come back with information saying that, hey, you need to use XYZ tools. Okay, so it will come back over here. You can see it will come back to the agent. The agent now knows which tools to use. So it will use those tools. Say it's just selected one tool. Maybe it's some database or some API. So in the last workshop, you saw the XYA API that we used, or we called some MCP servers, right? So similarly, it's going to call that tool, get the response. It's not, job is not done yet. Using the response, it is again going to form the prompt, which is with that additional context of the tool responses, and sending it back to the LLM. Okay, then the LLM will again reason. So this whole loop will continue. It will again reason, do I have enough information to reach my goal? Yes or no? No, then let's continue. Okay, so this is going to happen. Now, for defining this agent, you will see that in over here, we are using Strands SDK, like I said. And if you want to understand what the code looks like as an example, of course, you can go and check in the code in all the Lambda functions. This is just an example which is given here. Remember, these are optional concept parts of the workshop, just so that you can get a refresher. So just to understand how you can build a simple Strands agent, you can look over here. Okay, so you can see here, it is really simple. You just create an agent, you give it a personality. When you say personality, is nothing but a persona, a role, or a simple system prompt asking it how it should behave, how it should make a decision, what are its constraints, etc. You tell it what kind of tools it has, okay, and where do you define these tools. So when you're using Strands, there is a @tool decorator that you can use, saying that this is your tool. So for example, search flights over here, you will see it as a tool over here. So you can have multiple such tools you can define. And if you want to manage your session, so within Strands, you can very easily manage your session or your state, because remember, Lambda invocations are stateless. So if you've used previously Lambda in any of your applications, you know you would use like Fargate, or you would use DynamoDB to store some information, right? So over here, for session management, you can use S3. So you'll see as a part of this workshop also, you will be using S3. Okay, so you can look at this code, but I would suggest that once you're doing the workshop, you can go and look at the code which is available directly on the console as well. All right, now just like before, do you want to go through this part? I'll keep the screen shared, Anmol, the part about how do they get to the workshop.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can take that.
Hmm.
So if you can look into the screen, right, you will be getting your event output URL. That's your IDE. You see there. That's the URL. You need to click on that, which will open your code editor on the next tab. Here you can see everything with your command line over there. I think first time when you're going to copy and paste something here, it will ask you for the permission. So you need to provide that. Don't worry on that. Just give it a permission one time, and then it will work fine with that. And on the left hand side, I think in the second module, you need to look into the CloudWatch console to check the logs. You can access your AWS account from the left hand side where we are highlighting right now. When you click on that, it will open up in a new tab, and you will get your access to AWS account. Please please make sure that it should be in US West region. I think that's where our workshop is, to check all your pre-provisioned resources. Everything will be pre-provisioned once you have, once you get into the screen and get to your AWS account. And you can get your CLI credential on the left-hand side, just below your console, AWS console. I think that's how you can start once you get your access code.
Right. Thanks, Anmol. And just remember, at the top, you will see your in how much time the event is going to end. Something like this, you're going to see pop up at the top. Ideally, do not close it, because if you close it, you will not come to know how much time is remaining. However, remember that when the event link is going to be posted on Discord, the start time and the end time will be mentioned over there. So please be aware. So if you know that the event is going to end, say in an hour or so, or in 30 minutes, please don't choose that event link. Remember, we will keep sharing event links with you all. Okay, so wait for the next one, else you will fall short of time. Just one thing, this particular workshop, it's not as prolonged like the previous one, where I think a lot of people took almost 4 hours. This one you can comfortably finish it off in 2 hours, even if you do it slowly and refer to the concepts, theory and all. You can comfortably finish it up in 2 hours. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your event link. Make sure that you look at the start and end time, plus let this little banner be at the top, so you can always check back on how much time is left. Okay, so this is where your event screen is, and just like Anmol said, you can go and click over here. This is your events output. This will take you to your IDE. So right now you're seeing files here, but these will come much later in your labs. You will actually not see much over here. Ensure that you follow the steps. So once you get in over here, you will see that over here, there are certain steps where it will ask you to verify. Okay, so make sure that you have your AWS CLI. See that you have the SAM CLI. Remember, the version that you see may not match with what you see here. As long as it is equal to or higher, it is fine. Okay, so most probably you'll see it higher. That's completely fine. The main thing is it should be installed and it should be equal to or higher. Okay, so this is one pre-check that you need to do as soon as you get into your console. How do you open up the terminal? By chance it's not open, just like I mentioned last time, you go to view and you can open it up here, or you can go to terminal and you can say new terminal. Okay, if you want multiple terminals, click on the plus sign and you can get multiple terminals. Okay, now what are you going to be building in the first pattern? So remember, in the first pattern I had shown you, you're going to have multiple agents. Now you are not going to be coding these agents. Okay, there are already ready Lambda functions which are there. I would call them Lambda agents, which are already set up for you. What you are going to be focusing on is actually weaving this together, all of them together, using event bridge rules. Okay, so that they can start talking to each other. Okay, so you are not going to be coding them, but if you're interested in looking at the code. So there are going to be 3 agents you're going to be seeing over here. So these are the 3 agents that you are going to be having, which are already pre-created for you. Where will you find it? If you go to your console and search for Lambda functions, you will see them here. Okay, so let me just do a quick refresh so it will show you. Okay, so if you go to your Lambda, if you search over here, this is how I came here. Okay, yeah, if you come here and you look at all your functions, there are already functions here. The ones which are starting with the word merged, these are the ones that you're going to be used for the first part of the lab. That is your the one to do with choreography. So if you just want to shortlist them, sorry, merge, search here, these are the ones. Okay, you're seeing one extra one here. This is part of the optional lab. You will see only 3 of them at the beginning. Okay, the optional lab agent you will be creating towards the end. I've already created it, that's why you're seeing this. Now what you should ideally do is you open up one of them, just say the planner at least, and go through the code. Once you go through the code, you'll understand how the strands SDK has been used to build that agent. Okay, so it is important that you don't mechanically just follow. Just look at the code over here. The code is present over here. You can look at the settings, the configuration, everything. Okay, so same way what I was showing you, similarly over here also you can see everything. You can see how the agent has been set up. The session manager has been set up, which is using S3. Okay, you can see all of this over here. This is your Lambda setup. Okay, similarly you will have all 3. So you can see over here, you will have a weather agent, the planner, as well as your flight manager agent. Now what you're going to be focusing on is setting up the event bridge rules for them to talk. Okay, so this workshop will take you through the steps. So I'm not going to walk you through every step. Remember, there's going to be steps where you're going to be setting up all these rules. Now, remember, we are using CLI over here to actually create those rules and create which Lambda function to trigger also. But visually is always great. So as soon as you run this, go to your event bridge console and take a look at it. Okay, so so this is going to be your event bridge console. Same way you can search in the search bar. If you search over here event buses, it might not say exactly event bridge. This is also fine. It's one and the same thing. You can go here. Okay, remember we have created a custom event bus that's already pre-created for you. We are not using the default one. Okay, so accidentally if you've moved around and you don't see it, say you've moved around somewhere, okay, something like this, and you're like, where did the event bus go? You have to go to this drop down, ensure you select this custom bus. Okay, once you click this, then everything related to that will appear. Okay, it's there in this drop down. Okay, now as you create your rules, okay, these are triggering. These rules are nothing but pattern matching, right? So in this entire workshop, what is happening is there is a travel request coming in with information. So it's going to show you over here, right? If you go to the previous page, this is your booking request. Okay, so this is a booking request which comes in. What should it trigger? It should actually trigger the planner, okay, which is going to extract this information, and then it is going to hand it out, this information to the weather agent. It's going to hand it out even to the other flight agent. Okay, so because it needs to trigger the planner, you have to create a rule for it. It's nothing but matching that pattern of this event. Okay, this is the event which is in JSON format. So you'll see progressively. How will you see it? So once you run those CLIs, come back here and look for it. So for example, as soon as you create the first rule, you will see something like initial travel request rule. This will be created. Okay, you are seeing a lot more here because I've run the whole workshop. As soon as you see this, come and look at it. Click on it. You will see what pattern is it matching. It's saying that if the source has this and the detail type has this, then it should trigger whom? The planner agent. Okay, this is all that it's saying. So I just showed you over here, right? Okay, so this is your booking information. If the source as well as this detail over here matches, it's going to trigger the planner agent. So progressively you're going to be creating multiple rules. Okay, so in this particular workshop, you'll see that initially you will have rules for triggering your initial travel request, which will go to the planner. The planner in turn will call your weather agent as well as your flight agents in parallel. Okay, so you're going to see over here a rule over here which is going to trigger two of them. Okay, so if you again go back over here, how will you correlate it? You should go back here to your rules, and you'll see over here weather completed, catch all, human review, initial planner dates. Yeah, so if you come over here, you'll see it has two targets, meaning after it's extracted all the information, it's going to call these two agents. Okay, so simultaneously as you're doing the workshop, come back here and look at your event bridge rules. You will be able to understand what is happening. Okay, in between your steps, you will also see things like permissions, like Lambda will need permissions for event bridge to trigger it. How do you go and see it? So if you have a particular function, you can go to your configuration and you can see over here in permissions. Okay, you'll see the resource-based policy statements will constantly get filled over here as you're running those CLIs. So for example, this particular one, what does it say? The event bridge service can invoke this function if the rules is this one. Okay, so this will build up as you do your workshop. I'm just showing you what is happening when you're running those CLIs, because you probably don't realize what is happening behind the scenes. So keep coming back and forth. Okay, these lambdas later on in the workshop, they'll tell you that you can go and look at the lambda logs. How do you look for those lambda logs? Of course, like Anmol said, you can go through CloudWatch and search for those logs, or the other way you can do is go to monitoring over here. This is under configuration, by the way. This exactly shows you the log group where you're going to see the logs. So if you click over here, you will be able to see the logs over here directly. Okay, so this also get emitted by the lambda, so you can see the entire reasoning. Okay, so for example, I've run it a couple of times, so that's why I have certain log streams over here. So all you need to do is, once the log streams appear, remember that it takes a couple of minutes. Okay, so don't panic if you don't see any logs. Wait for a couple of minutes and you'll see it here. Okay, this is where you're going to be seeing the reasoning. Okay, now few gotchas, I think just one particular point, I'll be sharing this notion with you, which has all any particular points where you might get stuck. Okay, I'll share this with you. Anmol, can you share this?
Yeah, sure. I'll share it.
Yeah,
that would be helpful. And please bookmark this link. Anyone who is trying to do the workshop, please bookmark this link.
Yeah, so this has any particular gotchas that you might see. For example, a lot of places, because it's all CLI commands, there will be multiple places that you are using the variable name. So it's recommended that you go and store the variable name somewhere, right? Okay, so for example, you might switch your terminals and suddenly you've lost them, so you'll every time have to do that. So there are some resolutions here. One particular one which I'll tell you about is when you are running your CloudWatch analysis, when you want to see the events. Okay, so there is a portion in the workshop where you have to run your the CloudWatch analysis. Remember, there is a booking ID that you need to replace. So it's a placeholder. You have to replace it, else you will not see any results. Okay, and ensure that depending upon when you ran it, accordingly change it. If you ran it and gone for a break, half an hour later you come back, then you need to choose 30 minutes ago, right? Else you won't see it. If you choose 5 minutes ago, it won't show up. Okay, so make sure you choose the right time when you ran it, plus replace your booking ID, whatever you would have used. Okay, these are placeholders. This is one place where you could have some issues. The other places, in the last lab, which is the optional lab, there is an email which comes out to you. Okay, so there is an SNSV setup and it will ask you for your email. Whichever email ID you've given there, the same email ID, you're going to get a notification like this. It might go into your spam or your junk folders. Ensure that you open it up and see, because until and unless you go and confirm the subscription, it won't work. Okay, so make sure you do that. This is in the optional labs. The other
Okay,
place
this
where you might
is.
get stuck, yeah, Ashi, this one I think a lot of people get
Mhm.
stuck. It is over here. Okay, so let me show you where you might get stuck. It's here. Okay, this monitor the hotel agent. So as soon as you finish the previous step, if you instantly go and run this, it might tell you that it's not found the log group. Okay, what you need to do is, remember, after you run this, there is a step where you need to do a human approval step. Okay, the human approval step is not directly mentioned here. You need to go back to your choreography steps. Okay, this is the step I'm just telling you, where the human approval you need to explicitly do. So there is a step over here called as human approval decision. You have to approve it because it's waiting for that approval. That's why you're not seeing any logs. Once you do this approval using your booking ID, remember your booking ID would have changed. So it will not be this, it will be something else. Once you do this, then after a few minutes, you'll see your logs appearing, and then you'll see it something like this. Okay. Then you'll see these logs.
And
Okay.
we know that you will not be able to remember everything, so these videos are recorded. Go ahead and please watch it again. And Anmol has done a wonderful job in recording the whole solution video.
Yeah.
So
This
don't
is
feel like you have to remember every single thing Parna is saying. Yes, if you can remember, good. Otherwise, in the Notion page or in the video, you should be able to get all these things done. So thanks, Parna and Anmol. It's really nice walkthrough. Anmol, you want to add anything else?
No, I think we covered everything, and then we have all those recorded videos, so we are good.
Makes sense. And we have like a lot of volunteer who tested it. So if you are stuck somewhere, probably you are doing something wrong, and better that you check the solution video or check the steps we have mentioned. Because this workshop has been tested multiple times, Anmol has recorded a video on the live environment. So I doubt there are a problem in the workshop itself. Probably you missed a step or you misconfigured something. That's what we hear. Right.
And
yeah.
yeah,
Just one
on
thing,
that note,
Ashish. Yeah,
go ahead,
they
Padma.
can. You cannot do this in your own account. Okay, so
Yeah.
this particular workshop cannot be done. I think in the previous one, some people were attempting. You cannot do this in your own account. Instead, just watch the walkthrough video that Anmol has created. Yeah, that's all I can recommend. If you're not part of the event and not registered, you cannot actually do it in your own account. Yeah, go ahead, Ashish Prasad.
Yeah, I want to thank all the community volunteers who have tested this and put together the Notion doc, which has the workshop issues and resolutions. So yeah, thank you, all the community volunteers. And now I have posted the workshop access code in the workshop access channel. Let me share the screen. Hold on.
I'll just stop sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we are on time. I'll not take more than a minute, but I just want to ensure that everyone understand this. So if you go to workshop access code, you would be able to find the link on which you'll be able to click and use. Now, please click only if you are able to attempt now for the next 4 hours. People who are from India, probably it's quite late for you. Come back tomorrow morning, you will have a new access code here, right? So at that time, go on click. So if you click here, and if you do a email one time password and click on join, then you have consumed our account, and then you'll have to do it, right? Otherwise it will get wasted. So better whenever you are ready, based on your time zone, we have covered you for 24 hours, right? So we will keep sharing the workshop codes periodically for 24 hours. So whenever you're ready, then come and attempt it. Whenever we will share this access code, you will have around minimum 4 hours. So right now this access code is available for next 10 hours, right? So you'll have minimum 4 hours. That is our guarantee. Whenever you will be able to kind of access it. Yeah, that's pretty much. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being there, and I hope that everyone has got understanding. Rewatch the videos, and next step, as I would say, that complete the knowledge check we will be sharing or we will be publishing. Practice the hands-on workshop, and also be active and support others. Please check FAQ before posting the same question again and again. Summarizing it again, we cannot provision workshop for who have not registered, and for registration, you would need business email addresses. There is no workaround on those things. Then you can share your learning on social media, tag us so we that know that you have passed the knowledge check. We may not be able to respond to every single LinkedIn, but yeah, we would try our best to at least click on most of them as we can. So thank you everyone. Thanks Prasad. Thanks Parna, and thanks everyone who was answering question on the chat. We'll see you next week and happy learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.